This national bank just went all in on MSTR. But today we're going to dive into why this should not be a surprise to anyone that's paying attention and what you can expect from Bitcoin now that we've seen this Swiss national bank go all in on MicroStrategy. I mean, look at this chart. Talk about parabolic and a giant green candle. The Swiss National Bank is absolutely massive, but they're tied pretty closely with the Norwegian National Bank and the Norwegian Pension Fund and the Norwegian Sovereign Wealth Fund, which all together have a bunch of MicroStrategy, now known as strategy exposure. So this is nothing new that we're seeing the Norwegian National Bank get in on it. But the Swiss National Bank now all of a sudden is going all in, just coincidentally, while the value of MSTR is absolutely shooting up. And as many of you know, I love showing this, the MicroStrategy flywheel, to describe essentially what strategies plan is to acquire more Bitcoin. And it seems like central banks around the globe are absolutely loving this too. And they're seeing this and thinking, hey, it's absolutely genius. If I want some exposure for Bitcoin, one, I'm going to need a trusted custodian, go to get them approved, yada, yada, yada. A lot of red tape to potentially go through. But in the meantime, in the interim, I could get some exposure to MicroStrategy, now known as strategy. I know it, folks. I know you guys are going to flame me in the comments. I know it is strategy now. But anyway, regardless, we are seeing everybody lick their chops when they are seeing this flywheel effect. So MSTR issues more debt to buy Bitcoin. So that's what they started off doing. Bitcoin price increases as we are seeing here today, and MicroStrategy buys more Bitcoin. And then we see the MSTR market cap increases, the weight of the indices increases, like the NASDAQ 100, like some of these other types of big indices, potentially the S&P 500 if MSTR gets into that, which is a potential for later this year. Then it'll issue more equity to buy Bitcoin. Bitcoin price increases, yada, yada, yada. You guys get the story. Either way, Michael Saylor, the Giga Chad himself, will continue to buy more and more Bitcoin. And what do you know? He announced on Monday that he bought more Bitcoin. And here's their average price. Their treasury operations has delivered a gain of 459 million to strategy shareholders. Okay, so we've seen the strategy stock absolutely rip, outperform all of the Mag 7, absolutely pump over the last 90 days. It's been relatively flat, but look at this here, folks. What do we see? We see it absolutely shoot up to an all-time high just in early December on 11/20. Now, what do we see here? The Swiss National Bank started heavily investing into MSTR towards the end of the year. So they saw that as like a FOMO type of opportunity. We're seeing them start to double and triple down. But this anticipation is not coincidental. The timing of when the Swiss National Bank started buying Bitcoin is not coincidental. Why do I say that? Well, the FASB, which is the new reporting laws for companies and publicly traded companies in the United States to report their Bitcoin holdings, well, that passed just around November. So they saw this as an opportunity where now they see companies like MSTR become undervalued because they're going to show massive amounts of gains because they keep buying and buying and buying and buying Bitcoin. So as the Norwegian and Swiss national banks are seeing, they're going to scoop up as much as possible. Central banks acquiring shares of a pro Bitcoin software firm, MicroStrategy, potentially making an indirect bet on the trendy cryptocurrency. But okay, let's get into it, right? Their valuation of what they held here is not super much, right? They had 149 shares at one point in time. Obviously, this chart shows, okay, 149 shares. That's not the 150 million they have under their holding, because they've quietly started to add to that holding and continue to rise it all up, right? So let's take a step back and let's look at Switzerland, because I think Switzerland is a unique country to be doing this because of a lot of the economics behind Switzerland. It's obviously in Europe, but it's not a part of the EU. It's a financial hub, a leading global financial center, with Zurich and Geneva playing critical roles in international banking, wealth management, and insurance. There's always talk of getting a Swiss bank account. Now let's go and look at Switzerland as GDP. Well, okay, you're telling me, okay, it's the 20 largest country in the world as far as GDP. But the unique aspect of Switzerland is that it swings well above its weight. It's the 7th largest country when it comes to GDP per capita. And I'm not surprised that we see this country start to really go double, triple, quadruple down on MSTR, which indirectly is a bet on Bitcoin. There's also a city, Lugano in Switzerland, that is essentially allowing Bitcoin to be legal tender, buy and sell goods with Bitcoin, as well as Tether. There's always Plan B out there as well. So Switzerland is a big proponent of Bitcoin, and now seems to be a big proponent of MSTR. So Michael Saylor, that dog that he is, has been out there to Lugano and has, seemingly seen a lot of the developments that were going on around here. And, we're looking at the central bank's influences here around the globe, right? Of course, we've got the Fed. Everybody keeps all eyes on the Fed, and China. Everybody knows China, Bank of Japan, Deutsche Bank. But look at this. Norges Bank, big exposure to MSTR, and then the Swiss National Bank, the 10th largest bank in the world. So Switzerland really swings well above its weight when it comes to the financial world, and has continued to do so. And they're looking at all of this, and they're looking at the flywheel and how everything has developed. And they're looking at this chart here, which I'm loving to show today, the overall, quote, decoupling or divergence. We even had a member of CNBC say this morning that Bitcoin is diverging from the normal equities, the S&P 500, all of those aspects, right? So we're seeing this in real time. And I think that, others are going to be looking at how Bitcoin is starting to diverge from traditional equities, and are going to be looking to invest in companies that hold Bitcoin, opposed to holding US dollars, holding US S&P 500, holding some of these other things, because as an asset, as something on the balance sheet, Bitcoin is undeniable. It's the best performing asset that has been in the last 15 years. If you don't believe me, well, let's look at this good old chart here, as we're seeing a big green candle this morning, up 5%, up all time 837,000%. But in the last year alone, we're starting to see us crawl back up over that 90,000 mark. So what does that mean for MSTR? Well, that means that MSTR is going to continue to shoot up rapidly. And there's going to be a huge forecast. Look at it, even analysts are looking at a price target of MSTR as 503 when its current strike price is 347. 13 analysts are looking at this, saying that over this next year, we could see a max estimate of 650. That's essentially doubling what we've got here. And that it is always a strong buy, right? Because of its exposure to Bitcoin. So this exposure to Bitcoin is not a weakness. We had a lot of haters in the chat here, not too long ago coming at Michael Saylor. In fact, we had a friend of the program, Michael Guyad. I think it was tongue in cheek, essentially saying that, MicroStrategy should have bought in gold because Bitcoin was crashing. And I think we actually had Michael Saylor start to really look at or start to reply to him. So I'm trying to find that tweet for you guys. Either way, what we're seeing is MicroStrategy is a very, very big buy. And I think that we're going to continue to see that, where we're here, lead lag report and Sailor. So we're going to continue to see that. Yeah. Too bad Saylor didn't choose Bitcoin over gold. Michael Saylor came back, clapped back, saying, hey, since we've chose Bitcoin over gold, well, look at how well MSTR has done. MSTR up nearly 2,500%. because of them just simply buying Bitcoin. Now, you could do the same thing, continue to stack Bitcoin on your balance sheet. I always give away some free sats for you guys every time you come to these live streams, courtesy of my friends over at the Bitcoin Well. But I want to show you guys something today before we dive in and give you these sats. Because if you sign up at bitcoinwell.com/greencandle, you could earn some yourself as well. You could get 3 points, 3 wishing well points for every $10 buy or sell, 5 for every $10 recurring buy, 500 on your first transaction, and 500 every time you revert a friend. So get your first transaction. They'll even give you one. Set up that recurring buy for once a week or daily, $5, and you'll get it. So get your Lightning wallets ready as we're giving away some free sats for you guys. Let's see. 210 more sats straight to your dome piece. So hope you guys have the Lightning wallets ready. Get those out and scoop up as well, because I think that you guys could potentially keep up that and keep it going. So, only hider here, no hater. I love it. The goat in the chat always saying smoke the like Cheech and Chong. Michael Guyad has a great show. I've actually made an appearance on that show once upon a time. But he's going to learn soon the true value of Bitcoin. He'll get there eventually. And you could just, join all the revolution here. If you go sign up, bitcoinwell.com/greencandle. And if you got a big bag, folks, scroll on down, book a call with their OTC desk, $50K or more. You're ready for it. But the reason I love Bitcoin Well is because they stress self-custody. In fact, they make you do it. So that's why I partnered with Bitbox. You could go buy the Bitbox 02, use promo code GreenCandle for 5% off. You could do all this, stamp your seed in there, get your seed wallet, your seed phrase all stamped in on that with the seed or and everything. So you could go all in one at bitbox.swiss/greencandle, and you could do that and get your sats saved for life. Sats for life, stack sats. Those 210 that I just sent you guys, you can get them in cold storage ASAP like Rocky, because we're seeing these national banks really start to double and triple down on MSTR because they want the indirect exposure towards Bitcoin. I think that is absolutely massive and something that is being, maybe discredited here. They're looking at it, and in reality, MSTR, Michael Saylor, MicroStrategy, now Strategy, they've been losing money on paper for 4 years. So let's back up. But it's been one of the best performing stocks there is. Why is that? Well, if they've been losing money, they've been having to pay off this debt and continue to buy more and more Bitcoin. Is that a negative? Is that a negative? Doesn't seem to be by analyst, right? Is this a negative? Their Bitcoin yield per quarter, they've pricing everything in BTC 5,000 Bitcoin gain, 54,000 Bitcoin gain year to date, 140 gained in 2024. So, I mean, if you look at the way that Bitcoin is ripping, holding Bitcoin on their balance sheet has significantly benefited MSTR as it's a levered play on Bitcoin. So, look, it's not financial advice, folks, but we're just looking at the writing on the wall and reporting what other people are doing. We're seeing central banks buy up MSTR. What else have we been seeing central banks do? They've been scooping up gold, getting away from the dollar. So they haven't necessarily been buying Bitcoin, or at least not public about it. They could be doing that, right? They could be publicly buying Bitcoin, and we just don't know that just yet. That's all speculation here, folks. But we see, Bitcoin start to take off, especially today. We got a little morning activity here where we're seeing skyrockets in flight. Boo! I got to get a better song for the morning when I come here and do these morning rips for you guys. But we're seeing a 5% gain already. So we're coming gate, folks. And I think everybody is looking at how Bitcoin is starting to decouple and looking at the potential price of what we're looking at for MSTR here, right? This is something that's interesting. They got 4 analyst projections. The average is increasing to by 45% year over year. The max is 87. They don't want to say, hey, Michael, we're going to, see a 2,500% return in this next 4 to 5 year period. Analysts can't say that because that's too outlandish, right? There's a lot of factors that go into that. It would be absolutely crazy to see something like that. But the reality is, these are projections from analysts on TradingView. Everybody is saying that this is a strong buy and hold. We have one bear in the chat. Not in the chat, but one bear here saying it's a strong sell. 1 out of 15. Look at this. Annual earnings per share. They continue to lose money. That's the unique aspect of this. Is like MSTR is essentially breaking markets. We're looking at this and we're seeing MSTR continue to pump on up. Even though they lost the most that they've ever lost per share last quarter. They're continuing to report a negative revenue, or they're, losing money based on their revenue. And their revenue has been decreasing or having a little bit of a surprise, not necessarily getting as big of an increase as we're seeing, right? So these factors are essentially saving MSTR. And what we're also seeing is that, a lot of these pension funds, sovereign wealth funds, they want exposure to Bitcoin, but they might have some difficulties obtaining that exposure or kind of seeing it grow, whatever. Maybe they've got some more red tape to jump through. And so look at the massive amounts of exposure here. Recently, this chart is absolutely incredible. You can't make this up when we see this exposure start to absolutely rip. We've got some of the goats back in the chat. So what's up, McLovin, All Nighter Hider, Christopher? Thank you guys all for joining. Smoke the like, don't forget it. Because we have been going over how Switzerland, the 7th largest bank per capita, or 7th largest GDP, excuse me, is looking at this decoupling of the US dollar. The 10th largest bank in the world. They're like, this is a absolute money powerhouse going at it. Exactly. Brian Lee is saying, what company has lost money for 4 years and has 49 billion on the balance sheet? I'm definitely buying and I'm definitely holding. Amen to that. I mean, what Michael Saylor has been doing is unprecedented. And he's doing it all in plain sight, right? There's going to be more companies that are starting to develop this strategy here. Pun intended, right? And the difference is that the companies that are coming online, like GameStop, GME, a perfect example. Michael Saylor and Strategy came on and bought 250 million worth of Bitcoin in their first buy. You guys know how much GameStop is now doing it for? 1.2 or 1.3 billion, right? Like they are 5xing the amount of buys that we're seeing from MSTR originally. And all of these companies that are coming online are now having to ask or are getting forced to answer the question, why aren't we doing this for our shareholders? If shareholders want to provide, or if we want to provide more value for our shareholders, why aren't we doing this? Right. And, they reported a loss on paper from traditional metrics, but they've delivered a Bitcoin gain of 459 million to Bitcoin or to their shareholders just in 1 month, right? Michael Saylor is saying that. Look at that in this tweet. So I don't think traditional finance has caught up to it. I think a lot of people are still falling behind. But as you guys can tell here, the Swiss National Bank is definitely ahead of the curve, and I think they're going to continue to be. So smoke the like Cheech and Chong. Thank you guys all for joining me on this early morning rip, all nearly 200 of you. Hit the bell notification so you guys know when I go live, and I will be giving you away sats every single live stream. So come on in, and thank you guys all for joining the show.